I look back and I see those times where I wish I got angry. I mean, my entire breakup with Jordan, I was just keeping the peace so much. And then also, I have to actively ask myself all the time, like, am I doing this out of people pleasing, or am I doing this out of like pure love?
What would you tell your 20-year-old self who is afraid of eating food?
I would say slow down and you're going to be okay. And success is not a race and it will happen at its own time. And to just continue to dive deep into like the self-love, honestly, which I think she was trying to do. Because I look back and like, I don't think it had a lot to do with the actual food.
Hi, my name is Aggie and this is Biohacking Bestie. The one-stop shop for a modern queen, where you can find biohacking courses, self-growth courses, and where you can find the most incredible community of women so you can hit all of your biohacking goals and beyond. Hi besties, and welcome to Biohacking Bestie. This is Aggie, and today I am super honored to host a dear friend of mine, Alyssa Lynch, who I have been following for over a decade, believe it or not, and we'll just be dropping in like a sister to sister, like an older sister with a sister. And we'll be talking about everything, relationships and periods and wellness and self-love. And if there's anything that resonates with you, make sure to tag Alyssa or tag me in your stories and just share with you what was the biggest takeaway, because we want to continue this conversation with you off the podcast. This is not just the two of us talking. We just want to keep on chatting with you. So Alyssa, welcome.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. It's so good to be here and see you.
It's been forever since I've known you. And for those of you who are listening to this on Spotify or iTunes, you can't really see how beautiful Alyssa is. But if you have video, you should see the video because it's honestly stunning. And your aura is even more prominent in person, which I really, really love.
Thank you. Same to yours. I feel like it's so cool to be sitting here too. We've definitely been through such different transitions personally and career-wise. I feel like since we first met in like the travel space of social media. So it's cool to sit here and also too to like have so many different things in common together now with like
so different and so similar, which is I think it's like the most beautiful thing. So if you guys don't know, I remember watching your videos and Jordan. Back in like over 10 years ago, you guys were like traveling and I was just about to like start my Instagram and I was looking up to you. I was like, wow, that is the coolest lifestyle. And do you think you guys were like the pioneers of the travel content in the world? Was kind of crazy to think, but that's where you started.
That is, yeah. No, seriously. I mean, he, I don't have a relationship with him anymore. I hope he's doing fabulous, but I will say he comes up all the time just because I think that was probably still just the coolest years of my life, because I went from, living in my hometown, working at a restaurant to what felt like overnight, then traveling the world with someone who I was so in love with, the first person I was in love with. And it was just like this
How old were
fairy
you?
tale. 19.
Yeah, it's right at the beginning.
Yeah.
What was it like for you? Because, at 19, you're still super fragile and your sense of self is not quite established, right? Like you're young and trying to figure out like the first year of being an adult and knowing what you like, what you don't like. What is it like to be like out there on social media? You guys were like, back in the day, the amount of followers that you guys had, it's equivalent to like probably 4 or 5 million today, right? Because it was just the beginning.
Totally.
And the reach, right?
Times.
Yeah.
Such different times. I kind of miss it sometimes,
I know. Like the amount of engagement that you would get. But like, so.
And it felt like you didn't have to do as much. It was a little simpler then.
Oh, yeah.
It's beautiful now too. But
one of your videos, was it with Rory that like hit 1 billion views?
Yeah, the Chainsmokers music video.
Yeah.
It was, that time was wild. I think So I was very committed to my acting career then, and it was going well. I had just wrapped like season 1 of 3 different shows, and I then had fallen in love with this guy who was in the social media world, and I wanted to take a break from acting and go and adventure and see the world and get a little cultured. So I was able to do that. And honestly, at the beginning, the social media world to me and my presence on social media was truly just to kind of support his work and show our travels together. I never thought social media could help my acting career. That was not my intention with it whatsoever. To be quite honest, I actually thought it would hinder it a lot. And so I wanted to keep both of those very separate. And so that's what it was. It was like, oh, let me just show he's such a talented videographer. Let me like show that. Let me show like these videos he's making. And yeah, the Chainsmokers, I remember they were really close with Rory Kramer, and they were like, hey, we have like 2 days to like put together like a lyric video for this song because we want people to be able to search on YouTube and find something when they search the song because we think it's going to be big. And he was like, I have some footage of like these, Alyssa and Jordan, and they just like handed it to them. And then,
Next thing you know,
I think it was top 3 viewed videos on YouTube for a while.
Wow.
It has over, like billions of views. It's insane. So yeah, that was kind of the start of it. And then little did I know it would end up being I think what I didn't realize was that I always knew I was a very hypersensitive person to energy. My space, my surroundings, the people around me played a very, very important role in my life. And with acting, it was always my dream because I loved storytelling. I loved being creative, being in front of the camera, being behind the camera, all of it. I loved it. However, with acting, like you're not in control of who you are going to be surrounded by. Not only, I don't just mean like I can handle a day or two of being around people I may not vibe with, but you're signing up for potentially years of being around certain people. And I did a couple of movies that just made me feel very drained, and it was negative energy, and it scared me. Like it really scared me. And then when I kind of dabbled into the social media world, it was just like people were taking the reins of their life, and they were like such dreamers, and they were doing things with it, and it inspired me a lot. It made me see it in such a different light. And it made like all of these kind of aha moments go off in my brain of like, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to do that. And I don't know, are you into human design at all?
Yeah.
So like I realized I'm a manifesting generator and that I'm not supposed to just do one thing. And I think that that's why so many manifesting generators are in the social media world, is because you can dabble are you as well?
Yes.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. We can like, we've dipped into the travel space, into the wellness space, into this because we love doing all those things. Like we're passionate about so many different things. So that's kind of when I was like, I'm going to let my ego go and not be so judgmental to this world. And I'm just going to try it out. And ever since, I'm just like, it can be whatever you make it to be. And I found such beauty in it.
Yeah, I just think, and this is my impression, or obviously feel comfortable not sharing too much, but it just felt like you went from like a very, very high of like social media and an acting career and like being at the very top to then going through a really tough time emotionally. And it felt like it's exactly what your soul attracted because you needed to grow into the person that you are right now. And so I'm curious how your relationship with self, with your body has evolved over time and how your heart broke into being a softer, more open heart. But like as a sensitive person, I can really relate because you've been through a lot publicly at such a young age. It sounds intense.
I think, yeah, you're right. And I love that you put it that way. I've actually never really thought about it in that way of like needing to go through that in order to get to this place.
Because I think you had to experience that and you had to see that this doesn't resonate with you. And I think that's why it's super easy. I think Jim Carrey said, like, I wish everyone could get rich and famous to see that's not where it's at.
Gosh. Yeah.
And I
absolutely.
think we've all, when we say we've been there, we kind of feel like we were at the very top in the travel space and then realize like, okay, that's not it. That doesn't make me happy. Like, doesn't fulfill me to the extent I thought it would.
Absolutely. And like, that doesn't mean that I don't think this job is the most, I'm so grateful for it. And I think that it's a luxury to be able to like call it my job and do the things that I do on a daily basis. But yeah, it changed my perspective in the way of like, it doesn't make all the other things that are going on inside go away. I think like growing up, I was always an extremely hypersensitive person and like deeply emotional person. But to be honest, I'm kind of the black cat of the family. No one else in my family or my circle, I felt resonated with that. And so it's never something that I really dove into. I looking back, like I was, writing songs and poetry in my room at night. So, I mean, I guess I was, leaning into it, but just with self, not talking about it with anybody else. And I think experiencing heartbreak for the first time and being somewhat in the public eye, it just like, it crushed my soul, my being, and made me, truly have to do the work.
You had no other choice because there were so many people with an opinion of who you are, or like, no, we both went through the same thing where we broke up with our partners, and I think you were told the same thing I was told, which is like, you're nobody without him,
Yeah, because, and two, when you're told something that you minorly believe a little bit inside of you.
Like the 5% thinks that's,
Ooh, it's tough because I know that I would have created a life like this regardless of if Jordan was in my life or not. However, I thank him every day for being able to, for showing up in my life and giving me this life, like I do think he played such a huge role in that. And
you also know that you could have gotten here by yourself through another avenue. Absolutely.
But like, also the love that I was able to experience with him is like, it's like that first love situation, and it's so special. So yeah, I thank him, but I also know that I know that after we did break up, my pivot from like this travel world to, I kind of just I turned it more into wellness, not only because I'm so passionate about wellness, and I always have been. Like, looking back from an early age, I've always been into it and wanted to know more and wanted to continue that kind of life path. But also because when you're extremely hypersensitive, you don't really have a choice. It's like, if I don't take care of myself, practice self-care, and do all of the things and continue to add things to my toolbox, internally, I feel like I'm going to crumble to the ground. Yes. So it's like, I was able to continue down that path of, I went on a yoga retreat and I literally learned self-love for the first time. And even though on the outside, my body looked extremely thin and fragile and like I was going to break, I think it was just a part of the process of learning to like shed so much psychologically, spiritually, and internally, and then be able to expand the love inside of myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it's just like one of the many reasons I wanted you to come here is for people just to witness, or for you ladies to witness another woman's journey into self-love, and how it wasn't a very obvious one. We are born loving ourselves as kids, you know, and then we unlearn all of that because we're being taught be skinnier, eat this, don't do that. And then I just want you to like dive in a little deeper into your journey of diet and self-image, and how was that for you?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, the pressure to look a certain way, I mean, I can remember that from being so young. And I think definitely the acting space and just being on TV. I remember doing my first movie at 17, and I've actually never shared this before, but I was in a fitting for it, and they had pulled all sample sizes for me, and it's totally not their fault. But nothing fit me. Like I was probably a similar size to how I am now, maybe like a little bit curvier because like puberty and whatnot. And yeah, nothing fit, and I was humiliated. Like I was so nervous for this and so excited. Like it was the best day of my life. I have finally booked, I mean, a lead role in a movie. Yes, it was a Lifetime movie, but still it was like the best thing that had ever happened to me. And to see the look on their faces that nothing fit me was so humiliating, which now if that would have happened, I'd be like, hey, order a different size.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not my size.
It's not a big deal. But as a 17-year-old, I was just like so crushed. And so I remember from that day on, I was like, I want to, make changes. And as I made changes, I felt like the weight that I lost provided me with more opportunity. And I don't know if that's like reflecting back on that now. I don't think that's true. I think it was just the confidence that it was building within myself was allowing me to have more opportunity. But
or the story you told yourself of what that means, right?
Exactly. So I continued to lose weight, and especially when the heartbreak happened, that was just something that I think I attached myself to losing weight with self-worth.
Which we all do when we go through a breakup. All of a sudden we feel like we need to either lose weight or change something about our appearance because we feel like there's a part of us that feels unworthy.
I look back and I'm like, I lost so much weight. I chopped all my hair off. I dressed so differently. I went through like the like hippie pants and like the major like hippie vibe stage. It was, gosh, it was hard. I feel so bad for my family. They were so worried. And
did you just not eat? What was your...
Yeah, I really didn't. And I sit here today and I don't know how I did that because I'm just a hungry girl now. And I'm like, how did you do that? But I lost my period for the entire, from honestly that time of being in the dressing room and those pants not fitting me. It was from that time on that I didn't have a period up until this year.
Wow.
So
how long is that?
That is 10 years.
10 years without your period.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, a lot of women, when they lose their period, are thinking, oh my God, this is great. I don't need birth control.
Yeah, it was. It's quite awesome.
And at what point did you think that, oh, maybe it's not so awesome not to have your period?
For about, I would say, I mean, I knew after 3 years, I knew like, okay, I should probably do something about this. But every doctor I went to said gain weight. And I knew that was true, but I also like wanted to know more, and I wanted to know why. And I did really feel deep down like there was another reason. And so after, I would say after like 5 years, I started to like try different healing modalities as well as gain healthy weight. Like that was a huge goal of mine. I also had like insane insomnia, like really, really bad insomnia.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that about you.
Oh my goodness. Terrible. For about after that breakup, the first breakup that I went through.
And we're so grateful to Jordan for starting your spiritual journey.
Yes. Thank you, Jordan. After that, I did not sleep for honestly years. I would go 4 days no sleep, 1 day sleep, 4 days no sleep, 1 day sleep for years. I tried everything. And then
what was the thing that, like, if you went to a doctor, if you shared with someone in this space, what was their, like, hey, you don't have your period, you're not sleeping, perhaps this is what you should do?
Yeah, it's pretty wild because, to be honest, and no shade to Western medicine doctors,
but also
my entire family's in the health industry. My aunt is a Western medicine doctor. My mom is a lab assistant in the hospital. My grandma builds hospitals. Like everyone is. When I have a headache, they say, well, have you taken Advil? Come on, don't complain about a headache if you haven't taken Advil. Like that's my family. So I've gone down a very different route.
It's such a beautiful full circle though, because you're still in the healing space, but you're in the new paradigm of healing.
Yeah.
So it still stayed in the family.
Exactly. And now we're seeing eye to eye on certain things. I feel like we're like creating this like maybe happy medium sometimes. But I would go to especially Western medicine doctors and they would be like, take my lab work. Everything looks great. We don't really know. I think you just need to gain weight. And after I had gained,
which is not easy for a lot of people, by the way. Like,
yeah, it's not. It's really not. Especially, I feel like as I started to get happier and practice the self-love, it wasn't even about weight. I looked healthier. Like even if it was, I don't even know what it was because I didn't own a scale, but even if it was 5 pounds, like I looked healthier. But I still had no period. And that was years. I was, I had put on 15 pounds, whatever it was, maybe 20 pounds even, and still no period. And then I met I call him my healer because I genuinely feel like he has like 20 million different roles. But he is I guess like a naturopath, a chiropractor, a cranial sacrology. What am I calling it? He's very into like the body and connecting it to the mind, and he'll like put pressure points on certain areas of your body and it will release certain things. He's also really into, taking the right supplements that you would need. And I started to see him almost 2 years ago, probably now. And he just gave me so much more information and just provided me with like so much. Like he went back to my childhood and was like, where do you think this thought comes from? Like where do we hold anger? It's in our hips. So let's like release this and it was a lot of body work. And that was honestly, just by doing that, I just felt so much more connected to my body.
Beautiful.
I started to like breathe for the first time. I feel like I was like actually breathing into my womb and my like sexual parts, and also realizing that I was not connected to my sexual or feminine self for the last, whatever, 10 years. I think what happened was creating this story in my head that like I need to lose weight to have some type of self-worth, and that is so important. That put my nervous system into such a fight or flight, which was also me living in such a masculine state of like, I need to do this. Like we are waking up and we're working out and we are, making enough money to provide for my family and to be independent and to move and have my dream life. And I also think the breakup with Jordan of kind of having that fear of like, oh my gosh, can I do this on my own? Like I relied on him for this past year.
It's so interesting. You touched on so many interesting points. For those of you who don't know Alyssa's story fully, Alyssa's Canadian, so she moved to LA, and anyone, you're technically an immigrant, an expat, call it whatever you want, unless have moved to a different country on your own, you don't understand what it's like. You don't have the support group, your family's far away. There are many nights where you just cry into the pillow because you feel lonely and why am I doing this? And can I do this? So you call up your family and you like tell you to go back home and you don't want to give up. So you put on this facade of like, I'm going to be fine. I don't want my mom to worry. So I'm just going to make it look like I'm totally okay. And so we completely shut down, disconnect of like, I'm actually super fearful. Everything is very different and it's too much for me. I don't have the right support system that I have back home. And what happens if we shut down? The first thing when we don't feel safe, we disconnect from our sexuality, right? Because for us, I'm exactly the same as you are. I can't like get turned on if I'm like, in my mode of go, and feel stressed or nervous or scared, right? Like we need to feel safe in our bodies. And it's really hard to feel safe in your bodies when you're a woman, an immigrant, away from home, live in a masculine world that is trying to you're trying to prove yourself. I've gone past that point. There's still maybe like 1% energy of proving. I'm way more mission driven now, but a few years ago it was just like energy of like, oh my God, I need to show my parents that me leaving the house, leaving home made sense.
Oh, I can't relate to that anymore. I just did a huge, psychedelic therapy session, and everything that came up was proving. Like my whole life has been trying to prove to myself, to other people, to the world, to my family, to everything that I'm like capable, and which is great to have in a small sense to like motivate you and be a passionate person. So I'm grateful I have that a little bit, but like I think as out of fear, it can be taken too far.
100%. And I think do you feel like there was a part of you do you feel like there's still a part of you that feels like you need to prove that you're smart or have something to say because you're pretty?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you know what? Also too, that I've had these like little flashback moments. And I remember when I actually first came to LA when I was like 15 for the summer for acting lessons. I stayed with like my mom's friend in the Valley. She lived out here, and it was always my dream to move to LA. So I was like, oh, I'll go for a couple months. And I remember the first acting class I did, the coach looked at me and was just like, before he even asked me my name, he was like, just to let you know, there are so many pretty faces in this world, so you better bring something better to the table. And I was just like, I'm thinking, and I was like, yep, you got it. Like, I know LA is a tough world and I'm good as a 15-year-old. And I'm looking back at that and I'm like, how rude. Like, how rude for you to doubt my ability and my skills based off of my appearance to you. Like, it's just,
But we do it all the time
Yeah.
to other women, and we women do it to other women.
yeah, I know.
Why?
It's a shame. It really is.
We see another beautiful woman and we feel like, oh, I'm threatened. She probably has nothing else to say, and F
Yeah.
her.
Yeah, it is wild. I think, yeah, all of that doubt, and as a hypersensitive person, you
People
feel
project.
that. You
You have-
feel it, and you're like, oh my gosh, that person's doubting me. That person's judging me. You feel it so intensely. Like, when I say I'm a hypersensitive person, that is by no means a flex. Like, I'm not flexing that. I think it's the biggest challenge I've ever been, been blessed with, because it's a blessing in certain ways, but oh my gosh, it can be a curse if
And now
you let
have,
it get to you
and
so
you
much.
now have almost 1 million people projecting things at you energetically of what they think you should be and you shouldn't be, and who you are. And I guess getting good at boundaries is really, really helpful. But
Absolutely.
how can Alyssa feel safe in her body if she's being told what to do and who she is, who she isn't?
Exactly. And that is what Brian is the name of the healer that I'm talking about.
Brian
that I
the
met.
healer.
Brian the healer. He always, from day one, he would be like, the pressure you have on yourself. And I would always tell him, I'm like, honestly, I don't feel it. Like, I'm pretty chill. I've never really felt pressure. He would bring up certain things about like my family and childhood. And I'm like, no, it's never really gotten to me. But like, little did I know, when we really stripped away certain things, and over time I was able to feel into my body, and then these emotions would come up, I'd be like, I think you're right. I think you're right. And so about a year of doing that body work, of no longer being plant-based, which was something that I started it in the beginning of, yes, the weight loss journey started with being plant-based, but of course I also got super passionate about being vegan and about the animals and the whole lifestyle of it. I loved it. It really, 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 like, I don't regret going through that time of my life, because it taught me so much about wellness. Actually, it taught me so much about cleansing, about being like going to the farmer's market and finding fresh produce and what's in season, and like so many different things, recipes, cooking
and also
in a
like
way.
celebrating plants. Like, I think that's the best thing about me being vegan for 8 years as well.
Yeah.
Like, you really have so much reverence for plants,
Mm-hmm.
and you realize that there's always a percentage that need to come from animals with as much reverence.
Which I tried to fight for so long, being like, no, that's not true. I feel great, because I knew I was not healthy. I was eating pizza and wings and fries and like all of the things before I was vegan. And so going from that to eating plants and eating like nourishing foods, it was the best feeling. I was on such a high. And I think like the vegan diet and lifestyle can be so good for a cleanse, for like getting in touch with the earth sometimes, and like going from being unhealthy to experiencing more healthy recipes and whatnot. But over time, my body was lacking so many nutrients, and it was not able to absorb nutrients, especially for my hormones and my like femininity. And so I started to incorporate certain supplements that weren't vegan, and then fish, because that's all that felt good for me. And Brian was like, I am never going to shove a steak down your throat. So like, you do you. And then one day I woke up drooling, and I was having a dream of eating a steak. And I was like, Alyssa, you got to make some changes here. And I literally found myself in like the Air One parking lot, like eating steak with my hands. And I think I blacked out during this. And do you know Crosby Taylor?
No.
I think he was there. He's like very much in the wellness world. You should have him on. He's super knowledgeable. And he he was like looking at me while I was eating the steak, and he's like known me for all of my vegan years, and he's like, "You good?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I think this is my like self-intervention. Like I think this means my body's deprived. I've woken up from a dream and found myself here in the parking lot eating like an animal." So I only ate steak from that time on, like maybe 3 times. I also then did a psychedelic therapy session that, oh my goodness, provided me with like the most insane amount of self-love. Like it was remarkable. I woke up from that being like, oh my gosh, is this a placebo effect? Because my boobs are so sore and I have not felt this in 10 years. This is so weird. And about 12 days later, I got my period.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. After a decade.
Yeah.
Super powerful.
It was.
What psychedelics were they?
So it was a little bit of psilocybin and MDMA. So that's
beautiful.
not like
Great
a
combo.
psychedelic, but it was like a professional who has gotten them from like a Harvard clinical study. I guess they use both of those for PTSD. And I never really thought that I would go down that route. But for me, it was like, I think that this work can be done without the use of those. Absolutely.
And there's something to be said, you know, there's so many things that we hand out in hospitals that have much worse effect on your body than MDMA. But I already see the title. MDMA brought my period back after a decade.
Right? And it's like, I think that Brian's work with the diet and all of these different things, that was going to get my period back. I 1,000,000% believe that. But I just think that because of the hypersensitivity and because of all of the built up blocks that I had internally in myself, it would have taken a couple more years of intense therapy. And this was just able to release those very, very quickly.
I love that. Do you think there's because I find myself that we women have been put in this prison of being sweet and kind, because it's like, I love when people call me sweet or, oh, she's so considerate. And so I want to become those things because, you know, oh wait, I'm being praised for that. So let me just be super sweet. And then I realize it's like a prison that makes me wither, because it feels like I can never get angry, or I can never get upset, or I can ever get like frustrated, you know. So what happens is those feelings naturally come up because I'm a human, and then I immediately judge myself for them. I can never be upset. I can never be, you know, you're the sweet Aggie, da-da-da. Yeah. So in my healing journey, I realized like, oh my God, like I am so worried about what people think of me that I will do things out of my integrity to make sure that I'm sweet, consider da-da-da. And then people pick up on it, and it's just like, oh, she sucks because she does X, Y, and Z. And I'm only doing it because of my lack of self-worth and people pleasing, you know, because I just don't want to upset people. So in my journey, and actually in the book, I even said like the part of, you know, healing your stress is becoming a bitch and feeling like, oh, I'm allowed to feel angry. We get so judged as women for feeling angry, for a rage, for sexuality, and just like really embracing that, being with a partner that gets it and doesn't feel scared, doesn't call you a crazy bitch, but kind of like, oh, cool, this is the feminine rage. I get it. Like, this is healthy. And I hold him in his sadness and whenever he feels like crying, and I don't feel like it's not hot, quite the opposite. I was like, this is really hot and really beautiful that you're connecting with that part of you. But I can see for Jacob, it's so hard for him to let himself, he needs to let himself cry. And there's so many layers that I just want to like poke him like, babe, it's fine. Like, you're human. It's just because you're a man doesn't mean that you don't cry. It's healthy.
It's the way we've been like conditioned as females and males, right?
So what was it like for you? And do you get pissed at people for putting it in a box? Or at things?
You're so spot on with everything you just said, because anger is the, like, I feel so disconnected from anger, and I don't know what to do when I feel anger.
It's very much like me, because all I know about anger is that it's directed at someone and it's aggressive. And so, I don't like anger. No one has ever taught me until recently that anger is a very healthy emotion. It's a very active. Like if I get angry, I take action. But I need to have a setting in my home that if I feel anger, I can either put my head in the water and scream. I can like throw the pillow. So I'm not directing this anger at somebody else. I'm letting this anger just move through me.
Which
right?
is so important, or else it gets stuck. And
Yeah.
that's what I think happened to me over the years is, I mean, I think about it too. I've been so like disrespected in relationships and
But picking up your energy even from social media of like you always supporting your friends, always shouting them out,
Yeah.
always celebrating them. And there was a part of me that I just always thought, it was like, are you celebrating yourself enough? And when you get screwed, you should feel angry. And you chose not to get angry, which is beautiful. But at the same time, I feel like there's a level of you that is ready to.
yeah, because I look back and I see those times where I wish I got angry. I mean, like, no offense to shout him out, but my entire breakup with Jordan, I'm like, what? I was just keeping the peace so much. It's okay. Everything's great. I'm here if you need me. And I'm like, he really hurt you. Like you could have used your voice. But I even look back at video content from that time. My voice is about 10 times higher. I talked like this, like everywhere. Everything was very sweet and kind and I was praised for it in certain
because you're
ways,
so
right?
she's so sweet. Like that's the best compliment you can give to a woman. And so wait, this is good. Okay, cool. I'll do more of that because this is what was going to win me approval.
Yeah, and then over time, and now I've realized that it's like, okay, I need to like use my voice. Not that I need to lower my voice. I actually need to find my real voice, which is this tone. And I've tried to like relearn and teach myself that. And then also, like really, I have to actively ask myself all the time, like, am I doing this out of people pleasing, or am I doing this out of like pure love? Like I'm so excited to support this person. I'm so excited to give this person the space and time that they need. So I do really have to like ask myself those things.
Am I coming into this friendship as an equal, or am I glorifying the other person as someone who's like smarter, better, more creative, or whatnot?
Yeah, I really will say like relationships have been the biggest teacher for me. I went through a relationship of being the mother. I went through a relationship of, I guess more so the first relationship was almost being the child or the follower. And then I went into being the mother and like,
oh my God, it's so the same. First relationship was like, wow, you're my teacher, you're my everything. I'm this little puppy that's going to follow you and do everything you say. And, like literally like, peanut butter, my dog. It's like, you're so cool. And then I went into the mothering role and like taking care. And I'm like, what if I just going to be someone who's equal, which is finally what Jacob is, right? Because it's like, I'm tired of being up here or down here.
I am now in a relationship where it's the first relationship I've gone into where I feel very like, where I feel my most healthiest and strongest self. Of course, that doesn't mean that I'm like all put together. I'm an absolute mess, but like, you know what I mean? But
that's a good sign.
Yeah. But it's funny because it doesn't make it easier at all. Like sometimes playing a role and staying in a box is safe. It feels safe, right? And then when you're like, okay, I am my full self, I'm my full weird self, I'm my full messy self. And when you're with someone who also comes into a relationship at that same state, you are like accepting that you're going to be your full self, which means, okay,
Scary.
I'm not in this mothering aspect where I don't, get to have my own breakdowns. And so then I'm like, oh my gosh, having these like meltdowns and breakdowns, and the hormones are there now. And it's wild. And you have to like face those challenges. And that's why everyone's like, oh, you're in a new relationship. Like you're in the honeymoon phase. And I'm like, yeah, right. Like this isn't a honeymoon phase. I am like
Deep in
choosing-
trenches doing
Yeah.
the work, guys.
choosing to like be with someone who chooses to be with me. And we are like seeing if the compatibility, or not even compatibility, but like if we can, choose to go through this together and separately at the same time.
Yeah,
It's
it's funny because people ask us like, oh, you must be so in love with Jacob. And I'm like, well, my definition of what in love is just seeing someone who's this like perfect person that I'm ready to follow. It's not what I resonate with. Like I love him, right? And I also do everything I can to make sure that I work on my own happiness so I don't outsource it to him and expect him to bring it to the table, which we definitely have been there, done that.
It's so hard. It's so hard. Like, especially in today's world of like, social media, and you only, like we were just talking about off mic for a second, it's, the expectations are absurd nowadays. Like you have these expectations, and you also, I feel also too, I was only single for not even a year between two relationships, and you really feel what it feels like to only have to focus on yourself. And it's scary, but I got to the point where it was awesome and beautiful and amazing. And I was just like, but I'm such a lover. Like I love love, and I love being in love, and I love sharing that with someone. And so sometimes when conflict comes, you're like, I was doing great on my own.
Yeah.
But then
I love myself.
you like work it out, and when you just both choose to like be able to support one another on each other's individual journeys, it's like so worth it. And I think that that's what like these relationships, and not even love relationships, like my best friend Sam, she has really taught me to, because she's someone who really chooses self-love and that whole journey of doing like the really deep hard work. And we're both so similar in so many ways. I mean, like literally we have the same birthday. We are so similar in so many ways. Like I don't even have to speak, and she just gets me. And there's, I would say her and one other person in my entire existence on earth I feel that way with. And but the way that she chooses herself, and I'm sure she in her own way deals with certain people pleasing, but like the way I view her, and when I see her say, oh, you know what, I'm so proud of you, like you go, like I'm so proud of you, but I actually can't make it. I'm like, wait, what? How'd you do that? That's amazing. Like you just, and I'm like, why can't you make it? And she's like, oh, like Mondays are my days for myself. And I'm like, that's the reason?
You chose yourself over coming to my party.
Oh my gosh. Like, but I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Like,
well, because
I
you have
want
enough emotional maturity to know that.
And no one ever, because she does it with such love and confidence, no one ever judges her for it or is offended by it. And if they were, it's just like, that's their own problem.
Yeah.
And you see it so clearly. You're like, oh, well, that's her own problem.
Yeah.
And it is so admirable. And it's like, those types of people in my life have taught me so much.
I want to meet her.
Oh my gosh.
Please.
You need to meet her. She is the best. Oh, I can't. I'll cry.
I would love to. So I have a question. What would you tell your 20-year-old self who is afraid of eating food?
I honestly think I would like strip away like anything to do with food actually, and like tell her to.
She's sitting right here. Imagine you're talking to her right now. What would you say to her?
I would say slow down, and you're going to be okay, and success is not a race, and it will happen at its own time, and to just like continue to dive deep into like the self-love, honestly, which I think she was trying to do. But yeah, because I look back and like I don't think it had a lot to do with the actual food, you know?
I 100% agree, and you touched upon patience. One thing I don't have, and we have this illusion. I was a child star back in Poland. I was a TV host, and I think once you hit success so early, it almost feels like a downhill because you tasted how easy it was, and so I think we both relate on those moments of like feeling like you should be constant growth and progress, and we both kind of went back to go forward. And that's a really tough time to be in. So like if you feel like you have progressed in your career or in your life, and then there's this like a few years when you went back, it's just a really tough 2 years or 3 years or 5 years to live.
Well, it's like, it's the fight for relevancy. And if anyone in the social media space says that they have not experienced that, I think they're lying. It's you're constantly fighting to continue to be relevant. Like, especially I feel so deeply for these TikTok stars who truly go from like living in Ohio at their parents' house, and then all of a sudden they are like one of the most famous people on earth. And then like, they're probably just like, oh my gosh, this is great. This is amazing. But it's like one video. And it's like, how do you continue to keep up with relevancy? And I see them like, okay, we got to collaborate with this person. Then we got to do this and we got to do this. And it's like the fight to not dissipate.
Be forgotten.
Yeah, and be forgotten. And it's not only about like, oh, I want my ego to be brushed. It's not like, I feel like people look at that, and it can be that for some people, but it's also like when you've built a career from this. So you're like,
you're paying the bills out of being relevant.
Like I have to in a certain way. It's it is hard, but I also think like I'm so grateful for I've just always wanted a lifestyle and a career where I'm able to have freedom. I'm able to pivot with my life because I pivot all the time with what I want to focus on. I am able to be creative, and I'm able to bring my friends and family into certain amazing opportunities that I get. That's all I've ever really, really, really wanted. I have, as much as it may seem not the truth, but I've really never been like that. The fame aspect hasn't been something that's been a priority for me. And I've had opportunities where I could have utilized those things and probably, you know, gotten way more followers and done all of this. But I think that that's probably too why I love being in a relationship where the person's not in the spotlight, because it's like I want to come home to like a grounding space and energy. And so I think that helps the fight for relevancy more, and allows me to like focus more on just like what I'm doing and who I'm connecting with, which is helpful.
Oh, so beautiful. Alyssa, thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being so honest and just so like vulnerable, which is super beautiful. And I'm here rooting for you. Where can people find you if they want to continue the conversation, connect with you?
Thank you so much. I am just Alyssa Lynch on all platforms.
Easy peasy.
Thank you for
It's
having me.
LYNCH.
Yes.
Yes. So just in case. And also double S.
Yes.
Yes, just in case. For those of you that are listening, thank you so much for tuning in. Alyssa, thank you for coming. I love you.
I love you.
Aw,
Thank you.
that's so great.